comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, across the bay from San Francisco. My guest today is Brooklyn, Los Angeles Dodger historian Bill Hall, returning to these microphones for, I think it's about the third time, so I'm delighted to have him back. We're going to talk about the Dodger Giant move to New York, from New York to California back in 1957, right after the season. They were gone. And just want to set the record straight on a bunch of stuff with Bill. And before that, how about some Dodger music to bring us back to those times? This is something I just discovered recently. It's by a fellow by the name of Dennis Mazza, and he writes and sings a beautiful song about one of my boyhood heroes, Roy Campanella. So take it away, Dennis. Please take it away, Dennis Mazza. How you doing, Dennis? Here we go.
When I was a little lad, I teamed up with my daring dad, and we stole off to Brooklyn's Ebbets Field. With just a nickel on the L, a man could ride from here to hell. We got off at Prospect Park, if I remember well. We walked through someone's neighborhood, a few more blocks and there it stood, the edifice that housed my boyhood dream. When we arrived, I can't forget, the ball game hadn't started yet, and what this moment meant to me is more than I could tell. I saw Robinson and Hodges and all the other Dodgers. Some were field and grounders, others out there catching flies. There among this great array, the finest players of my day, and something about the catcher caught my eye. He was a strong and friendly fellow with the name of Campanella. He was someone special, I could see right off the bat. There was something in his bearing, gear that he was wearing, and the funny way he always turned his hat. I can't forget you, Campanella. You've been my hero from the start. I can't forget you, Campanella. You're still the MVP within my heart. You're still the MVP within my heart.
Beautiful song. How about now, a little Jackie Robinson. Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball?
And when he swung his bat, the crowd went wild because he knocked that ball a solid mile. Yeah, boy.
Yes, yes, Jackie hit that ball. Satchel Paige is mellow, so is Campanella. Newcomb and Dobie too. But it's a natural fact, when Jackie comes to bat, the other team is through.
Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball? Did he hit it? Yeah, and that ain't all. He's going home.
Yes, yes, Jackie's real gone. Jackie's real gone. 'Cause Jackie is a real gone guy.
That was Jackie Robinson. And one more for you, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We have Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye sung something that was terrific. It was D-O, D-O-G-E, D-O-G-E-R-S, bop. It's really O'Malley. Is it really O'Malley? No, O'Malley. Here we go. I'm being silly. I love this song. Here we go. Hit it, Danny. Hit it.
So I say D, I say D-O, D-O-D, D-O-D-G, D-O-D-G-E-R-S, team, oh. I say O-M, O-M-A, O-M-A-L, O-M-A-L-L-E-Y, oh really? No O'Malley. Sandy Colfax, all my drives there, Maury Wills, I love you so, and we defy the J-I-N-T, J-I-N-T-S, Giants, Lebanon, Orlando, Cepeda, is that bat with the bases jammed, Orlando, Cepeda, with a wham, bam, he hit a grand slam in the very first inning, but it's only the beginning. In the third, like a bird, we get 2-1 on the way, then fairly hits into a double play. Here comes big Frank Howard, yes sirree. Boy, what a swing! Strike three. O-dem B, O-dem B-U, B-U-M, B-U-M-S. Them bums, them dry bums, oh, they may be bums, but they're my bums. Top of the fifth, say, hey, Willie Mays hits a three-bagger down the right field line. But he's out trying to stretch it to a homer as Roseboro tags him on the bottom of the spine with the crack you can hear all the way back up to San Francisco. Open your hospitals! Inning six, Maury Wills draws a walk in the coach's box. Leo DeRosa starts to wiggle and to twitch. A signal? No, an itch. Go, Maury, go, Maury, go. Home he goes. The catcher throws right from the solar plexus. At the bag, he beats the tag that mighty little weight, and umpire Conlon cries, "You're out!" Out? Down in the dugout, Alston glowers. Up in the booth, then Scully frowns. Out in the stands, O'Malley grins. Attendance 50,000. And what does O'Malley do? Bottom of the ninth, 4-0, last chance. Push the button, oh, we're pleading, begging on our knees. Come on, you flatbush refugee. Morey wills at bat, hit it for me once. Stu Miller throws, Morley bunts. Cepeda runs to field the ball, and Hiller covers first. Haller runs to back up Hiller. Hiller crashes into Miller. Miller falls, drops the ball. Conlon calls safe. Yay, Morey! Gilliam, up. Miller grunts. Miller throws. Gilliam bunts. Cepeda runs to field the ball, and Hiller covers first. Haller runs to back up Hiller. Hiller crashes into Miller. Miller falls, drops the ball. Conlon calls safe. Yay, Conlon! Willie Davis gets a hit, and Tommy does the same. Here comes Mr. Howard with the chance to win the game. Hit it once. Big Frank Bonds. Cepeda runs to steal the ball. So does Hiller. So does Miller. Miller hollers Hiller. Hiller hollers Miller. Haller hollers Hiller. Points to Miller with his fist. And that's the Miller, Hiller, Haller, hallelujah twist. The Davis score is 4-4. Howard still running the bases. From second to third, it's almost absurd. Amazement on everyone's faces. He's heading for home. He hasn't a chance. The poor nut is going to be dead. But the ball hits him right in the seat of his pants. And he scores. That's using your head.
That was terrific. Stand by. We're going to take a little break and come back with Bill Hall, Dodger historian, and we're going to set some things clear for y'all. Hang in there. We'll be back. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, from the 420 studio in Alameda, California, Northern California, right across the bay from San Francisco. And like I say, comfortably zoned, how bad can it be? I've got a terrific guest coming back for, 3 or 4 times, Mr. Bill Hall from Oregon.
Is the third time around.
Third, wow, this is very cool because we talk and have fun a lot of times. And we're on Facebook. You're the Dodger. If I go to, there are 3 or 4 Dodger experts. Scott Russell, you're a Dodger expert. Robert Cole's a Dodger expert. My dear friend Peter Trunk is senior, is a Dodger expert, and if I'm leaving anybody out, excuse me, but you guys, I was a New York Giant fan growing up, and my memories, because of you guys, are so much more keen as to what went on back then in the Dodger organization than what happened in the Giant organization. And what really led you and I to get together today was a conversation that we had on Facebook about the Dodgers and Giants moving, which we always seem to go back to because that was so monumental, and it tore the heart out of a city, and in particular a borough, Brooklyn. It was horrible. It was horrible for kids, adults, old people, young people. It just sucked all the way around. And it wasn't just the Dodgers, it was the Giants. But you mentioned something, and it really rung a bell with me. I used the expression on a comment, the sheep Horace, meaning that Horace went along with things. And he just was kind of this big stumble bum who didn't have a mind of his own and was led around by O'Malley. Would you correct my way of thinking and put it into your own words for me, Bill Hall?
Oh, sure. We're talking about Horace Stoneham, the owner of the New York Giants, and inherited the team from his father, and Walter O'Malley, the evil owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers. And conventional wisdom, and really something that I believed for many, many years, was that this was all the result of the evil O'Malley, and poor old drunken Horace was just along for the ride. But there's been some more recent research, and in particular I want to encourage you and anybody interested in new information and new perspectives on the move to hunt up a book that came out a few years ago called After Many a Summer. The author's name is Robert Murphy, and it really kind of lays out a case that those guys ought to be considered co-conspirators in orchestrating all of this. Originally, Stoneham was looking at taking the Giants to Minneapolis. His AAA
Now let
team.
me interrupt you there for a second. I thought he was going to Minneapolis, and I was always under the impression that because O'Malley owned the Minneapolis / the Minnesota / St. Paul, or whatever the hell it was called back then, the farm club for the Dodgers, AAA farm club, that he had territorial rights, and he quelched the Stoneham's deal to Minneapolis. Am I correct about that?
I believe you're correct, because, you had two AAA teams there, the Minneapolis Millers, which belonged to the Giants, and then the St. Paul Saints, which were Dodger property. So, I think there may be truth to that. And in any event, whether it was, it seems like it was O'Malley who persuaded Stoneham that far greater riches awaited both of them on the West Coast. And at least that's the way it worked out for O'Malley. Okay, well, I'm curious as to the part that Horace played in it. Was it a passive part, or was he just as aggressive as O'Malley was in looking to move? And what turned it around for Minneapolis, I guess, was that it was inconceivable of having one team on the West Coast. All these teams would fly out, and it really wouldn't be worth it. But if you had two teams, you have a road trip. You go to San Francisco, you first St. Louis, then San Francisco, so then L.A. or the other way around, and it makes it more palatable mileage-wise to have two teams on the West Coast. That made a lot of sense. I'm just worried. True. I'm just curious about Horace's part in it, is all. Well, I at least from reading After Many a Summer, you get the idea that they were really kind of co-plotters in moving forward with this whole scheme. The Giants actually announced their move in August of '57, and the Dodgers waited until after the season. And you are right that it made a lot more sense travel-wise to have two teams on the coast, but one team would not have been impossible. I mean, let me ask you this, my friend. Do you know the story of the Los Angeles Browns? The Los Angeles Browns? Browns. No. A team that never happened, but almost did. The owners of the St. Louis Browns, way back in 1941, had concluded that, they were on a fool's errand to try to survive in St. Louis when the Cardinals were so dominant. Right. I mean, during the Depression, they had seasons where they didn't even get 100,000 paid admission for the entire season. So they had worked out a plan for 1942. They were going to move to Los Angeles, and this was before jet travel. The plan was for each of the other 7 American League teams to make one extended road trip to L.A. by train. They'd have an extended homestand in L.A., and they had actually worked out the basic mechanics of this, and the owners were all set to vote on it
on Monday, December 8th, 1941. Well, you know what happened on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, and they immediately realized, the bombing of Pearl Harbor, that
Pearl Harbor? I thought it was Pearl Bailey.
Yeah, really. No. Yeah, Pearl Bailey probably got bombed a few times. But anyway, that plan was scrapped, and so the West Coast had to wait 17 years to get Major League Baseball.
So they were that close to going, the St. Louis Browns,
yes,
who
they
eventually naturally ended up in Baltimore, and years later, though. That's very interesting to me. I'd like to learn more about O'Malley and Carl Furillo. O'Malley was an enigma. Like you said, he treated some players like kings. He treated Campanella after his accident incredibly well. He took care of Campanella for the rest of his life on one level or another, and he had that wonderful, touching experience that made us all wish we were the Dodger fans when in 1958, when they opened up, when they came out to L.A., tragically, Campanella became a quadriplegic in the off-season, tragic accident. O'Malley brings him out to California. They're playing at the Coliseum, 90,000 people, and they turn the lights off, and everybody lights a match for Roy Campanella. That made headlines all over the country. That was not the O'Malley we think of when we think of Danny Kaye's version, comically portraying him as someone who only cares about the money that's coming in, and we'll play a little Danny Kaye on this thing. I'll edit some Danny Kaye into this thing, and Hilla Halla to Miller and what have you. That's a classic about the Giants and Dodgers rivalry. But that put O'Malley in the one redeeming light that you can go to and say, well, he did do that. But he was such an asshole in so many other ways, and he was doing so well in Brooklyn, and he just wanted mega wealth. And for that, you can't even blame him sometimes on some levels, because what the deal they gave him in L.A. was so incredible. Tell me a little bit about that deal and how that came about.
Well, basically in the 1950s, there was a city council member in Los Angeles, Roz Wyman, who really made it her mission in life to bring Major League Baseball to Los Angeles. And certainly other folks in L.A., the mayor, Norris Paulson, were involved, but she really spearheaded this effort, and she was going to do everything and really make it her life's work to get Major League Baseball in L.A. And they were looking at, every team that might be out there willing to make a move. They seriously courted the Washington Senators, but nobody for a while even thought the Dodgers were a possibility. But when they found out that Walter O'Malley was sniffing around and wanted to move, they courted him hard. And the deal that they worked out, O'Malley was also the owner of the Fort Worth franchise in the Texas League, and he worked out a swap with Phil Wrigley, who owned Los Angeles in the Pacific Coast League, basically traded Fort Worth for L.A. That gave him ownership of the L.A. ballpark, which was also named Wrigley Field. And so in exchange for O'Malley deeding little old Wrigley Field over to the city of Los Angeles, he got lock, stock, barrel, free and clear, more than 300 acres of downtown L.A., including the mineral rights, Chavez Ravine. A few years before, the city had condemned Chavez Ravine and basically turned the Hispanic residents of that area out onto the street. And for reasons I'm still reading and learning about, but the public housing that had been planned there never materialized. So they said, ho, 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 let's give this to Walter and bring the fabulous Brooklyn Dodgers to Los Angeles.
Yeah, and changed the history of baseball. Basically,
yes, it
right
did.
There.
Hey, you mentioned.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, you mentioned Carl Furillo, and I wondered if you wanted to get back to what O'Malley did to Furillo.
I do.
Yeah, you know, this is part of a pattern. You talked about how wonderfully he treated Campy, and that's absolute truth. But the problem was, I think, the man was so egotistical and yet so insecure that anybody who challenged him in the slightest, you know, whether it be Branch Rickey, Red Barber, certainly Jackie Robinson, he gave them a one-way ticket out of Brooklyn. And one of the many sad cases was Carl Furillo, who in 1959 was on the downside of a fabulous career, you know, a borderline but not quite Hall of Fame career in the opinion, I think, of most people who know baseball of that era. And
no, he's a good, solid ball player. I wouldn't say he was a Hall of Fame ball player, but he was really a good, solid ball player. I mean,
yeah, on that run, you know, just below, you know.
Yeah, right.
On the run,
the
just
Gus
below.
Bells, the Gus Bells, and the, I mean, dare I say Gil Hodges, because that's a travesty. But those who are in and some that aren't in,
maybe the Veda Simpsons.
That's
anyway, Furillo,
Tony Olivas, maybe.
Yep. And as for Furillo, he was injured in '59, and they wanted to send him down to AAA. And you know, he was in a position where he said, "No, I'm not going." And so he remained on the injured list although he came back and performed magnificently in the '59 World Series, really kind of the last hurrah. But at the end of 1960, the Dodgers dropped him. And then when he went looking for a job coaching, scouting, managing in the minor leagues, he found that every door in organized baseball was closed to him. And people would not go on the record, but they told him, well, you know, sorry, Carl, you've got to understand you've been blacklisted. And he filed a formal complaint with the Commissioner of Baseball, Ford Frick. And, of course, Ford Frick, who was fired by the owners, said, no, this is all a terrible misunderstanding. Mr. O'Malley has not blacklisted Mr. Furillo. Every team in organized baseball is free to employ him. And yet, of course, that never happened, and Carl ended up back in New York City installing elevators, including in the World Trade Center when it was under construction. A really sad thing.
He had been on down at the docks working hard labor before that.
Yep.
He owned or managed a grocery store about a block and a half from where I lived when I was a kid in the off season. And I'd go in there, I'd see Carl Furillo in a Mr. Whipple apron. And it was 8 years old, and one day I'm at Ebbets Field watching him play right field. Next day he's getting a can of corn down, from the shelf. It was really incredible to see that, to see the players in those days in the off season. I mean, they worked. These guys this is before unions and what have you. They worked in the off season. They had jobs, real jobs, working man's jobs, and they made good money for the times, but it wasn't that great money. And I downloaded an interview I did 20 years ago with Hank Sauer, who talked about his topping out at 37.5. He was an MVP in the 50s. He was a slugger, one of the greats, $37,500.
I mean, the unions did everything. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, why Mr. Miller isn't in the Hall of Fame is a real great mystery. Besides Gil, I'm still feel ripped off that Gil Hodges didn't make it. And there was an interesting picture, Bill, posted of Gil Hodges and Earl Weaver.
Oh yes,
together. And I didn't mention it on Facebook, but did you think of was that kind of ironic? They look so happy together and they're chatting. And basically, I think Earl Weaver, from what I understand, contributed to Gil not being heavy contributor to Gil not being elected way back. Am I correct?
I think you're correct, and I think what
he was on the old he was on the old timer committee, and really screwed Gil Hodges. And what was that about? Was that about the '59 the '69 World Series with the shoe polish and all that? I think that's what led to their rift.
Oh, definitely, and I think Earl had, unlike Gil, Earl was not a Hall of Fame caliber player. Managing was his whole life, his whole reason for, prominence, and he just could not stand the fact that Gil Hodges outmanaged him in that series.
Right.
But, I think you were seeing there in that picture something sort of like, the famous picture of Ben Chapman and Jackie Robinson with crossed bats in 1947. There was still no love lost behind those guys, but they were professionals, and they knew they had to make nice for the cameras, and that was what was going on there, I think.
Yeah, sometimes it's a lot of politicizing just to get by. But I wonder what it would have been for Gil, for Gil's family, obviously, but for the Mets had he lived, and which brings to mind, and I've mentioned this before on these airways, the lowest thing the Mets ever did, with as little class as possible. At Gil's funeral, they announced that Yogi Berra was going to replace him as the manager, and that's still to this day. I went, holy Toledo! I mean, you just they figured all the press was there anyway. They might as well make the best of it. And things that irk me when you're a fan. I'm a big Met fan.
Classless, tasteless, in the extreme.
Right.
But
it's you could have done it better. As big a Met fan as I am, as much as I love the Mets, as much as I enjoyed the season, you can't put into words what the giant rivalry in New York was like, and how the Mets were kind of like you put them in, you appease both teams, you finally get baseball back, Branch Rickey, all that stuff. It's great to have them. It's wonderful to have a team to root for 50 years. It was nothing like going to a Giant Dodger game when I was a kid, or a Giant anything game. And for you with the Dodgers, whatever it is, those are great times. The golden age of baseball can't be replaced. And that's what makes O'Malley so much of an asshole, that when he's making all this money and times are good, and everybody wasn't making money in baseball in those days. The golden age of baseball wasn't all it was cracked up to be financially, but he was, and he had the world by the tail, and he had to do it for even more greed, even more riches. Never could understand that.
Can I share my favorite story on this subject? That I think if there's anybody listening who doesn't know the Giants and Dodgers and what they meant in that era, and doesn't understand why almost 60 years after these teams ceased to exist, that people are still loyal to them, are still hurting over the loss, I think maybe this story sums it up pretty well. This goes back 30-some years. Two of the all-time great New York journalists, Pete Hamill and Jack Newfield, are drinking together one night, and I'm not sure which one of them came up with the idea, but said, hey, I got an idea. Let's write down on a piece of paper the names of the 3 most evil men in human history, and we'll see how close we come to matching up. And sure enough, both of them, when they exchanged sheets of paper, found they had listed the same 3 names: Hitler, Stalin, Walter O'Malley.
Well, the old joke about you only have 2 bullets, right? And you got to kill all 3 of them, and you got to decide if you're going to.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, what a life! What a life! That we're sports fans as kids. We root for the teams, and only as an escape from the real business world, the real world of finance, of corruption. So you're a sports fan, and all of a sudden you realize that the team you're rooting for is no less a business than IBM or whatever. It's how you're going to do in next year is dependent on who you sign and the free agent and how much money you give them. It's all bucks, and it really makes me sick in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
but,
on that, one that comes to mind, if I could, Zig, that, it's the hypocrisy that gets me, and I think gets other people as well. Back in 1922, the United States Supreme Court had to rule in a case that was brought by the owners of the defunct Baltimore team from the defunct Federal League. They filed a lawsuit against organized baseball and saying that baseball was engaged in interstate commerce and had violated the interstate commerce laws by squeezing the Federal League out of existence. And baseball argued, and Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes agreed. He said, no, baseball is not a business, it's a sport. And so when baseball needed to be a sport, it got to call itself a sport. But when Walter O'Malley decided he had to abandon the most profitable franchise in the National League for even greater riches, then everybody knew it was a business and nothing more.
Right. Peter Trunk, I was talking to him on these airways, claims that O'Malley had been planning this well before all of this. Like in '53, I think he said something. O'Malley went on a trip to L.A. and all this started. So, what part did Robert Moses have in this? Could he? If it were someone else who was the planning commissioner in New York at the time in charge, do you think they may have been able to save the day?
Possibly. To me, the greatest what if, though, we all want to blame Walter or Robert Moses now, or so many people do, that the propaganda machine fueled by the O'Malley family has convinced millions of fans that Walter was really fighting to stay until the very end, and it was mean old Robert Moses who chased him out of town. Well, no, I'm sorry. Robert Moses did not control one share of Brooklyn Dodgers stock. It was 75% in the hands of Walter O'Malley. And it's true that Walter wanted the city to condemn a site in downtown Brooklyn, very close to where the Barclays Center is now located, and then sell it to him. But, if you accept that the city could have done that, should have done that, and that was the only acceptable site for the Dodgers, then you can say that, yeah, it's all Moses' fault. But to put it in a little more perspective, that Moses wanted to put the team at the Shea Stadium site, and O'Malley said, no, you can't move the Brooklyn Dodgers to Queens. But, that wasn't acceptable, but it was okay to take them 3,000 miles away. I still don't get the logic in that. He at least put discussion of other sites on the table. And I've always said, if O'Malley truly doesn't, wanted to stay, he wouldn't have sold Ebbets Field to a developer. He wouldn't have bought the LA franchise. He wouldn't have done all the things that lined him up, basically greased the skids for him to go. And our friend Robert Cole, I'm not sure if you mentioned Robert, but he is a very active dog. Yeah, I thought you did. Well, he's come up with an insight that I think is very important in understanding this. He said legacy. Had the Dodgers stayed in Brooklyn, they would have always been the team that Branch Rickey built. But by moving the team 3,000 miles away, the Los Angeles Dodgers were a Walter O'Malley creation. And immediately something clicked in my head big time when I read that statement. In The Boys of Summer, Roger Kahn had some very long and revealing conversations with O'Malley. And there's this passage where Walter O'Malley is talking about his then young son, Peter, being really upset about all the nasty things people were saying about his dad because of the move.
Right.
And Walter's response was, oh, all of that will soon be forgotten and people will still be coming to the wonderful stadium that I'm going to build in Los Angeles, which will be a monument to the O'Malleys. Well, think about that. When you're talking about building a monument to yourself, come on.
Exactly. Instead of a shrine for the team, you could say that, that sounds a little bit better, we may.
Yep.
And it is a shrine. Give it what it's worth. Give him his due on this. Beautiful stadium, and to this day, it's kept up as a gem.
Yep. And I've got to say that it would be, I've been to several games there, and it is one of the most beautiful ballparks around. A great setting, a great park, but it should have been some other team in LA. It should have been the Senators. It should have been an expansion team. It should not have been the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Right. And, I blame L.A., you had it, and San Francisco. Why go after an existing? You could have waited around 2 more years for expansion. The Continental League was right around the corner. It's sad for those of us who missed those days and missed those teams. Talk about Horace's ill fate in San Francisco. He came out here with the same good intent, the idea that, if we had to do what we had to do, and they built him a stadium, and what they did was they tore down a mountain, literally, and to build the stadium, and it turned out that mountain was preventing a gale of wind from coming in. Every day at 3:30 in the afternoon, there'd be cold wind. It was colder than the witch at Candlestick Park, and I sat out there many, many times, day and night, froze my ass off. But let me tell you, when they put the stadium in, not only they screwed up by tearing down that mountain, so they did the wind tests after that, but they built heaters. So each seat, you go in there, and they never worked. They were built-in heaters because they knew it was going to be cold, and not one day did those heaters work. So he was cursed, and for many, many years, for one reason or another, the baseball gods did not shine on the Giants. They had some excellent teams in the 60s that just would time and time again lose out to the Dodgers, and they came very, very close in '62, and that was there were a lot of years they were very, very solid, and it's the Bobby Bonds years and Ken Henderson years.
McCovey, Cepeda, yes. Marshall. I mean,
Allou's coming up. They were supplying the rest of the league with outfielders. Allou,
George Foster.
Yes, exact for Frank Duffy, as a matter of fact. Some things just
I always,
never go out of my head.
I tell people, that George Foster was traded for a bag of broken bats and a pop-up toaster. I mean, that's about the worst they got out of him.
That's what he got. George Foster hit 52 home runs one year, and he was instrumental in the Mets winning in '86. And you want to talk about a deep team, just as my mind goes from there to there. Foster was like about the fifth guy that could have played every day in left field. They had Foster out there. They had Mitchell out there. They had Danny Heap out there. They were so deep. They had Hojo. I mean, it was just Ray Knight at third, Hojo. Besides Strawberry, Mookie Wilson, Lenny Dykstra in center field. Just an incredible ball team. And
Indeed.
And they're making a movie. I wanted to announce that. I'm going to try to get the producer of the movie, The Mets of '86. And I've got preliminary talks with the gentleman who's going to come on these airways and discuss the production of just such a movie. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, it gives me something to do every day. I get up, I talk to interesting people such as yourself, huh? Not a bad life.
Not a bad life at all.
Not a bad life.
Sorry the doctor woke up, and it's a little stormy up here in Newport right now. And I think that's what bothered her.
You know, Oregon in the summertime is the most beautiful place. I was blessed to have, I was the Topps representative on the West Coast, and we go up to the Northwest League year after year during the summer, and it was wonderful. I can't imagine what it must be like in the wintertime. Do you get sunshine at all, or what's the weather like today, for instance?
It's about 50 degrees, rainy, and just a little bit blustery.
Okay.
I think the wind suddenly stirred up my dogs, so I tried to find a little refuge here.
All right.
I'm
going to let you go. You're terrific. I really love that you come back time and time again, and you seem to have as much fun doing it as I have, and that's a biggie.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jake. Okay.
Thank you, Bill. I'll end the interview in the same way I generally do. I implore you, Bill, and my entire listening audience to keep your dreams wet, keep your humor dry, keep your kids out of military recruiting stations, because you don't want your family changed. It's just that simple. And off the laps of clerics that wear dresses. It's a good idea to remember all those things and to keep on keeping on. Adios, amigos and amigas.